All right, listeners, get ready for today because we are going deep into the world of romantic relationships.
That's right.
The good, the bad, and the absolutely confusing.
Exactly.
We're calling this deep dive Love, Lies, and Red Flags, and using a WikiHow article called How to Spot and Deal with Red Flags in Women as our guide.
Sounds a little provocative, right?
Yeah, maybe a little. But don't worry, this isn't about starting a gender war or pointing fingers.
It's about understanding those universal warning signs.
Yeah, exactly. Those red flags that could pop up in any relationship.
No matter who you are.
Exactly. So let's jump right in and see what wisdom WikiHow has to offer this time.
Sounds good to me.
So they list a whole bunch of red flags, but there were a few that really caught my eye.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, first up, we have lifestyle mismatch.
Okay.
And they use this hilarious example. Imagine a hardcore vegan marathoner dating someone who lives for like beer pizza and reality TV marathons.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right. You can practically hear the arguments brewing over dinner plans already. But all jokes aside, this highlights a really important point.
What's that?
Shared interests and lifestyles, they're kind of like the foundation of a happy relationship.
I totally agree. It's not just about enjoying the same activities, though, is it?
No, it goes way deeper than that.
Right. It's about compatibility and those core values that really shape our lives.
Exactly like having kids, religious beliefs, even how you handle money.
Yeah.
Those things can cause serious friction down the road.
Oh, for sure. Those are the things that can make or break a relationship.
Definitely. And speaking of shaky foundations, the article also talks about the always a victim narrative.
Oh, you know the type.
Oh, I know the type all too well. That person who's always blaming everyone else for their relationship problems.
Yep. Never taking responsibility.
Right. And I'll admit, I've probably dabbled in that blame game myself a time or two.
Oh, come on. I think we've all been there at some point.
Yeah, probably. But the key is recognizing that pattern,
Oh, definitely. That's a sign of something deeper going on.
Exactly. And that's where self-awareness comes in.
Absolutely, because that always a victim stance often points to a lack of accountability.
And accountability is essential for healthy relationships.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, this next one might seem small, but it's a sneaky little red flag.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Lying, even, about seemingly insignificant things.
Ah, those little white lies.
Exactly. The article suggests that even those tiny fibs can chip away at trust over time.
It's like a slow erosion, isn't it?
Yeah, and trust is the bedrock of any strong relationship.
Absolutely. Those little cracks can add up.
Man, get ready for this one because it's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The article calls it love bombing.
Love bombing.
Yeah, you know those whirlwind romances that start super intense and then fizzle out just as quickly?
Oh, yeah, those can be brutal.
Right, and the article cautions against falling for that intense early affection.
Because it could be a tactic.
Exactly, a manipulative one.
Wow, that's scary.
It really is like being swept away by a tsunami of charm, only to be stranded on an emotional desert island.
Ouch, that's a powerful image.
It's all about creating that dependency early on.
Before showing their true colors.
Exactly. So it's important to remember that healthy love grows organically.
Yeah, it's not a whirlwind, it's a steady build.
Right. It's based on trust and genuine connection, not some manufactured emotional frenzy.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, moving on to another red flag that I think a lot of people can relate to. Lack of effort.
Oh, man, I've been there.
Yeah, constantly being the one to initiate, contact, plan dates.
Yeah.
They'll do all the emotional heavy lifting.
It's exhausting.
For exhausting relationships are supposed to be a two-way street.
Absolutely. Reciprocity is key.
Exactly. Both partners need to contribute.
Otherwise, it creates that imbalance.
Right, and that leads to resentment.
And eventually sabotages the whole connection.
Okay, next up we have a classic red flag.
Let me guess, codependency.
Bingo, you read my mind.
It's a common one.
Yeah, that tendency to lose yourself in a relationship,
I know exactly what you mean.
The article paints this picture of someone like suddenly adopting all their partner's hobbies and interests.
It's like they become a mirror image.
Right. And while it might seem flattering at first, it's actually a sign of an unhealthy attachment style.
Oh, for sure.
It raises the question, why are they so eager to erase their own identity?
Yeah, what are they afraid of?
Often it's insecurity or a deep fear of rejection.
It's like they're saying, I'll be whoever you want, just please don't leave.
Exactly. And that's not a recipe for a healthy, lasting relationship.
Nope, it's about celebrating each other's individuality.
Absolutely not erasing it.
Now, here's a red flag that should be non-negotiable.
Okay, I'm listening.
Boundary violations.
Yes, this is a big one.
The article stresses the importance of respecting boundaries.
both physical and emotional.
Whether it's pushing for physical intimacy before you're ready or questioning your decisions all the time.
Disregarding boundaries is a huge red flag.
It goes back to that core principle of respect.
Absolutely. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding.
Not coercion or control.
Your partner should respect your space.
Your decisions, your right to say no.
Exactly. It's like that saying, if you have to ask, it's probably a bad idea.
Right, if you're constantly second-guessing yourself or justifying your boundaries.
That's a sign that something's off.
That inner voice is usually trying to tell you something.
It's telling you your needs aren't being met.
And your boundaries aren't being honored.
Now, I think we can all agree that recognizing these red flags can be really tough.
Especially in those early stages of a relationship.
Yeah, when you're all caught up in those rose-colored glasses
Exactly. Emotions can cloud our judgment.
and make us overlook those warning signs.
But that's why articles like this are so helpful.
They give us those valuable insight
Into those often subtle behaviors.
that can signal trouble down the road.
So stay aware.
And trust your gut instincts.
Don't dismiss those nagging doubts.
Or rationalize away behavior that makes you uncomfortable.
Remember, healthy relationships.
Are built on a foundation of respect
Trust.
and open communication.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
From clashing lifestyles,
To those sneaky boundary violations.
but the big question is, how do these red flags actually play out in real-life relationships?
Yeah, how do they affect those day-to-day interactions?
That's what we'll be diving into in part 2 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. It's about to get real. Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone.
All right, listeners, are you ready to go even deeper into the world of relationship red flags?
I know I am. We uncovered some big ones already.
Oh yeah, those lifestyle clashes, the always a victim mindset, and of course, those sneaky little lies.
Don't forget about love bombing either.
Oh, right, that intense whirlwind of affection.
That can be so misleading.
Absolutely. It's all about seeing past those surface-level charms and figuring out what's really going on underneath.
So what's next on our red flag adventure?
Well, in this part, let's get even more specific,
Okay, how so?
The WikiHow article gives some really interesting examples of how these red flags can actually show up in real-life relationships.
Oh, that's helpful because sometimes it's hard to see those red flags in action.
Exactly. So remember that red flag of demanding change?
Uh-huh. That one where they're always trying to improve you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So well, the article talks about how it can show up in these subtle, almost sneaky ways.
Oh, I hate that passive-aggressive stuff.
It's not always about like dramatic makeovers or forcing you to be someone you're not.
Okay, but what is it like then?
It's more like those constant little criticisms disguised as helpful suggestions.
Ugh, those backhanded compliments.
Exactly, those little bigs that just chip away at your self-esteem.
Yeah, and make you question your own judgment.
Right, like, oh, honey, that dress is interesting.
Or are you sure that's the best career path for you?
It's like they have a PhD in subtle put-downs.
And that's the dangerous part,
It is, because it undermines your confidence.
And it makes you feel like you need to change to be worthy of their love.
Right, like you're not good enough as you are.
Exactly. And remember, healthy relationships, they're built on acceptance and support.
Not a constant need to mold your partner into someone else's ideal.
So true. It's about loving and appreciating those quirks and differences.
The things that make each of us unique.
And speaking of trying to control someone, the article also brings up jealousy and possessiveness as major red flags.
Oh, those are classics for sure.
I mean, a little jealousy here and there, it's normal,
Yeah, it's a natural human emotion. We all feel it sometimes.
Right, but when it becomes excessive, controlling, all-consuming,
That's when it becomes toxic.
it poisons the whole relationship
Like that green-eyed monster just takes over.
and starts dictating their every move.
The article gives this example of someone constantly accusing their partner of cheating,
Oh no, that's awful.
demanding to see their text messages showing up unannounced at their work.
Talk about suffocating.
It's classic controlling behavior,
And it usually comes from a place of insecurity.
or a need to exert power over the other person.
They're trying to limit your freedom,
Isolate you from your support network.
control your every move.
It's like they're building a cage of insecurity around the relationship.
And that's the opposite of healthy love.
In a healthy relationship, there's trust and respect.
And space for individual growth.
You encourage your partner to flourish and be their best selves.
You don't try to control them.
Now, here's a red flag I think a lot of people overlook.
What's that?
Not accepting your other relationships.
You mean like your friends and family.
Yeah, exactly. Being dismissive or critical of the people who are important to you outside of the romantic relationship.
Oh, I see. That's a big red flag.
It is, and it often goes hand in hand with those attempts to control and isolate you.
Right, because they want to be the center of your universe.
Exactly. So they try to discredit or undermine those other important relationships.
The article even suggests that they might try to turn you against your loved ones.
Oh, wow, like planting seeds of doubt.
Yeah, spreading gossip, creating conflict,
It's all about weakening your support system.
and making you more dependent on them.
That's why it's so important to pay attention to how your partner treats the other people in your life.
Do they respect your connections? Do they encourage you to maintain those relationships? Or are they trying to create distance?
Because sometimes you need that outside perspective.
Especially when you're caught up in the whirlwind of a new romance.
Your loved ones can often see those red flags waving.
When you might be too close to the situation to notice them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it's so crucial to have a strong support network.
And to trust the insights of those who know you well.
Okay, let's talk about another red flag that can be tricky to navigate.
Okay. Shoot.
Defensiveness and a lack of empathy.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is, and the article emphasizes that it's not just about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right. Disagreements are inevitable in any relationship.
It's unrealistic to think you'll always agree on everything.
Exactly. But how those disagreements are handled,
That's what really matters.
it reveals a lot about the health of the relationship.
It's like you can disagree without being disagreeable,
Precisely in a healthy relationship, you listen to each other
validate each other's feelings.
and find compromises that work for both of you.
The article gives this scenario. Imagine you're upset because your partner was late for a date.
Okay.
Instead of apologizing or acknowledging your feelings.
They get defensive.
Yeah, they blame you for giving them the wrong time or say you're being too sensitive.
It's like they can't see things from your perspective.
And that lack of empathy is a major red flag.
It shows a lack of respect for your feelings.
And an unwillingness to take responsibility for their actions.
Okay, last red flag for this part.
Hit me with it.
Stonewalling and the silent treatment.
The silent treatment is the worst.
It is. We all need space sometimes after a disagreement, you know?
Yeah, to cool down and process our emotions.
Exactly. But when silence becomes a weapon,
It's so damaging.
communication is the lifeblood of any relationship.
And when someone shuts down, completely refuses to engage in any dialogue,
It creates a wall of resentment.
and prevents you from actually resolving the conflict.
The article talks about these minor disagreements escalating into days of ignored calls and texts.
Maybe even blocking on social media.
It's a form of emotional punishment.
That can be incredibly painful for the person on the receiving end.
It's a way of controlling the situation
By withholding affection and communication.
instead of actually addressing the issue
So we've really dug deep into these red flags.
and explored how they can show up in everyday interactions.
And what I love about this WikiHow article is that it goes beyond just listing the red flags.
Right. It helps you understand why these behaviors are problematic.
And what they might be signaling about the health of the relationship.
It's about giving you the tools to recognize these patterns.
And make informed decisions about your own love life.
Remember, you deserve to be in a relationship where you feel respected and valued.
And safe to express yourself authentically.
And that brings us to the big question.
What do you do when you spot these red flags in your own relationship?
Do you run for the hills? Try to salvage things?
Those are the tough questions we'll be tackling in the final part of our deep dive.
Don't miss it.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into love, lies, and red flags.
That's right. We've talked about all those relationship warning signs.
From the subtle ones to those in-your-face red flags.
And we've explored how they can show up in real life.
But now the big question is, what do you do when you see those red flags waving in your own relationship?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right. It's like we've got all this knowledge now, all these tools.
But then what?
Do we confront our partner, try to change them, or just cut our losses and run?
I wish there was an easy answer.
Me too. But
Okay.
unfortunately, it's not that simple.
It really depends on a few things, you know?
Like what?
The severity of those red flags, how much work you're willing to put in.
And how open your partner is to change.
That's a big one.
So let's say you spot a red flag early on, like those first few dates.
Okay.
Is it even worth bringing it up then, or is it too soon?
I think it's always a good idea to set boundaries and communicate your needs.
Even early on?
Even early on, if something makes you uncomfortable, even if it seems small, don't ignore it.
So address it head on.
Exactly. See how they respond.
Were they defensive, dismissive, or are they willing to listen? and understand your perspective.
And make adjustments.
It's like a test, you know?
Yeah, a test of their communication skills and their respect for your boundaries.
Okay, but what about those deeper, more ingrained patterns?
You mean like the always a victim mindset or the constant lying?
Yeah, those seem a lot harder to deal with.
They often require a different approach.
Like what?
Well, sometimes professional help might be needed.
Like couples therapy.
Yeah, or even individual therapy for the person with those red flag behaviors.
It's not about trying to fix them ourselves.
Right, it's about recognizing when you need some extra support.
And sometimes the healthiest choice is to walk away.
As hard as that is.
It's not about giving up on someone.
It's about prioritizing your own well-being.
And realizing when a relationship just isn't serving you anymore.
Exactly. You can't force someone to change.
And it's not your job to fix them.
Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to step back.
Create those healthy boundaries.
And let them work through their own stuff.
Because you deserve to be in a relationship where you feel loved,
respected,
safe,
and where your needs are met.
and sometimes that means choosing yourself.
Even if it's the harder path.
Now remember, this WikiHow article we've been talking about, it focuses on red flags in women.
But like we've said throughout this whole deep dive, these behaviors can be exhibited by anyone.
It's not about gender.
It's about recognizing those unhealthy patterns.
And having the courage to address them. So as we wrap up this deep dive into love lies and red flags, I want you to remember this.
Pay attention to those red flags.
Trust your gut instincts.
And know that you have the power to choose what you accept in your relationships.
Don't be afraid to communicate your needs.
Set those healthy boundaries.
And if you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out for support.
From friends, family, or a therapist.
Relationships can be messy and complicated.
But with the right knowledge and those communication skills.
You can navigate those challenges.
And create those fulfilling, healthy connections.
Remember, you deserve a love that lifts you up.
Not one that weighs you down.
That's all for today's deep dive, listeners. We hope this has been insightful, empowering, and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
As always, we want to hear from you.
Share your thoughts, your experiences, your own red flag stories.
You can find us on social media.
Until next time, happy dating and stay red flag aware.